Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
Hi, I'm Hillary Dickman. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admission for Marketing and Communications at Colorado College, and I'm also a parent of 2 college students.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of 2 daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a wellness coach at the Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I'm so blessed to be able to work alongside both my beautiful daughters at School Match for You, a college counseling firm that I founded in 2010. This week in the news, Lisa and I start out the discussion as I read an email that I received from a mom from the West Coast who I worked with last year that I thought was profound, and the mom gave me permission to discuss it with Lisa and share it on the air. And then we'll have part 2, the final part of what started out as a question from a listener, where Hillary will join me. But it morphed into a conversation about the importance of colleges being able to predict yield and to predict how many students are planning on coming. And then we'll have the final part of my interview with Julia Shields-Rutyna and Jonathan Hughes from MEFA, where they answer every single question that I could think of related to 529 plans. And then we have a lengthier recommended resource on CLEP exams and the Modern States program by Adam. Now, Adam is a member of our Counselor Connect team, and he and I met, and we wanted to do something on CLEP and Modern States, but I did something pretty extensive 2.5 years ago. So I said, why don't you just have the floor? You got up to 5 minutes. Let our listeners know any updates, what they need to know about CLEP and Modern States. And then I'll close with a brief conversation that I had with a family this week that I think may be of interest to you. Friends, you may have noticed that at the end of last week, I said I was going to talk about the $400 million fine levied on Columbia. Well, it's really not a fine. It's a removal of federal grants. It's like 1/3 of the grant money they're really eligible for being pulled from under them. But I'm tabling that for now because I'm still doing some more research. There's so much happening in this world of higher ed. My head is spinning. I'm trying to keep on top of it. And I'll be sharing more with you on Monday as well about how the rules have changed in admissions. But I wanted to share with you some of the articles that you'll get if you're signed up for our newsletter, YCBK Plus. You just go to yourcollegeboundkid.com. You can't miss it. On the far right side of the page, it just asks you, are you a parent, student, college counselor, or other, and email. That's all it asks. And then you'll get emailed our newsletter completely free. This is where we can supplement the topics we cover here with some additional articles that we think are important. And there's hyperlinks to these. We make sure we don't put up anything that's behind a paywall. So I used to do 7 every month, but so much is happening in the world of higher ed, it's really hard for me to pick 10. But I'm imposing a discipline on myself because, I can be a little long-winded, and I'm imposing a cap of 10 max. So here's the 10 articles that you'll be able to read if you're a subscriber to YCBK Plus. There's one about how the University of Texas system is now offering micro-credentials completely free to its students. It's very similar to the conversation I've been having with Kathleen Dulaski on Mondays. There's another article about how did standardized tests get wrapped up in the middle of this DEI debate. That's a good one. Then there's another article about the incredible financial pressures that Johns Hopkins is under, that they find perplexing and distressing, and they are warning about massive budget cuts coming to Hopkins because of the Trump-era funding chaos. There's another article on how transfer enrollment is up in the fall by 4.4%. There's another article about how the surge of DEI cuts is hitting colleges all across the country. And then there's another article on, well, the one I was going to actually go over with you about the cancellation of $400 million of Columbia grants and contracts amid anti-Semitism probe. And it's not really just Columbia. It talks about 9 other colleges that they have their radar on and are considering going after. There's another article on the projected Pell shortfall and how it's $2.7 billion and how that can impact financial aid. And then there's an opinion piece called Asian Americans Got Played in the Affirmative Action Debate, which is just worth reading. And finally, an article on how the Education Department is considering using AI chatbots to help people with FAFSA instead of live, callers there to talk to you. And finally, what just went down yesterday, the Education Department basically having half of their entire staff fired. It reminds me, Julie and I had a little bit of a debate on here probably four months ago where I did not think the Education Department would be abolished. I just thought the consequences would be too great, and she thought it would. Well, it looks like split the baby in the middle. It looks like the option is fire half the staff. So you can say we're both right or we're both wrong. That's what happened overnight. Is 1,200 people basically got their pink slip. So those are the articles that we have and we think you'll enjoy reading. So check out YCBK Plus. All right, let's transition to our episode.
And now it's time for Hot Topics in the News.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. Listeners, you don't know this, but Lisa and I have never done something like this. I'm like, Lisa, do you want to record? I got this amazing email that came in. And she's like, sure. I'm like, when? She's like, how about now? I'm about to leave the country or something. Or get out of here. So hopefully you guys will like this. What happened was I reached out to a student that I worked with last year and her mom just to see how things were going at her college. And she wrote this, the mom got back to me with this incredibly powerful email. And then it was so powerful, in fact, I asked if I could read it on the air. And I said, I'd be happy to. I won't mention the schools involved. Certainly wouldn't mention their name. I said, I won't even mention the state that you're from. She's like, share all of it. I don't care. Put it out there. So I'm not going to put all of that out there. I'm certainly not sharing names. I'm not even going to share her state. I will say they were from a Western state. And I'm not even going to share the college that she refers to, but I will say this. It's either Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. So I'll leave that ambiguity there. And then I want to read the email. And Lisa's just a great person to talk to about this because, well, I think you guys will all see why after I read it. So first email, and this was early part of February. I was just checking to see how college was going with mom and daughter. So how are you? Just want to follow up to see how college is going. So here's the email that I got back, from mom. So she says, hi. And then she says, I think the University of Arizona has been really good for my daughter. It has been academically challenging with a double major of astronomy and physics, which of course she was interested in. She's also going to try and minor in astrobiology. I think it is a blessing that she didn't get into Harvard, Yale, or Princeton for many reasons. And then she says she's been able to take advantage of things that only U of A offers. A class in Biosphere 2, attending a conference at Biosphere 2, getting a paid outreach job at the Astrobiology Center, getting to know the lead scientists on the OSIRIS-REx NASA mission. She's already won a paid Arizona Space Grant Consortium internship to work with the faculty member, searching for oceans on exoplanets. You can see I'm not much of a scientist over here, Lisa. I'm struggling on the high science stuff, but it's still exciting.
Yeah, I didn't even know astrobiology was a field until just now. So I was like, all right, I learned something today.
And my dad was a chemistry teacher, but it was my worst subject. So anyway, another faculty member emailed her after class and offered her more research opportunities because she was asking such great questions in class. She'll be working with him this summer on research related to supernovas. She has made some excellent friends through the Honors College and enjoyed living in the excellent honors housing with on-site dining, classrooms, and counseling. The winter sunshine is incredible, and she's loving experiencing such a different place than the Western state that she grew up in, with new food, music, and other things. And then she said it's been such a great fit and such an amazing price. She received a $128,000 merit money scholarship, and we are so grateful. Multiple exclamation marks. I can't imagine how there could be a better bang for our buck. And then she goes on to, just say, wishing you all the best and keep everything up. So this particular parent is also a podcast listener. I will say that, so she'll get to hear this. So I responded. I said, this is amazing. What a great story. I know you're private, but how would you feel about me reading this on the podcast? Of course, I would never mention your name or the school. Some people do not take not getting into their highly selective school very well, and it can impact their mental health. They need to know that there's hope, and I can't think of a better way of giving them hope than to read your email. And then I said I could also exclude a bunch of other stuff, that you included just to protect your confidentiality. And then she responds, and here's what she says. And then I'm going to ring Elisa in because I'm tired of my voice here. Anyway, share all the info you want. Use the university names. Use our state. Then she says, I want to spread the gospel to all. I can. I am so annoyed as an Ivy alum that I fell into the trap a bit. I always believed Arizona would be a great fit for my daughter, but part of me hoped she would go to the same school that I went to and that my father went to. I can say with total conviction that this is a way better fit. And it's so hard to justify that giant price tag and that pressure cooker atmosphere she would have had at Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. Now I feel like we have this awesome way to beat the old narrative. And she also went on to say, as an alumni interviewer of Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, I quit. I'm so tired of kids not getting in with a 3% admit rate. It's just insane. So what are your thoughts, Lisa?
Oh, well, this is a great, great story. And I think it happens more often than we hear about. But I think it's just an amazing illustration of how if you can just put your preconceived notions aside, like you can find the best fit for you, and it can also be like, affordable for your family. I cannot imagine a student doing more than this student has done at the University of Arizona so far. And, she's not been there that long.
No,
so,
one semester.
Yeah. So I just find this kind of story very inspiring, and I hope that more people will take this to heart, because you see there's just so much pressure that goes into this, and it starts early. It starts, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, where the parents like, you have to get all A's and you have to, start your own company and you have to invent a new cure for whatever, or, you have to write this paper because you have to go to one of these, very selective schools. And that just sets a student up for a certain kind of lifestyle, which I think probably most kids it's not really psychologically beneficial for them. And so, like, if you kind of step back from that, like this student, like, you could go probably get good grades, good test scores, do some stuff you're interested, get admitted to the University of Arizona Honors College, and, have a better experience. It's cheaper, right? And you wouldn't have put yourself through all of that struggle. I kind of, in my mind, I call it like it's opting out. You're opting out of the game, and you're trying to pick a different direction.
Yeah, and let me first say this. This is not meant to be bashing Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. We have multiple kids at all of those schools. I think I only have one at Harvard now, but multiple kids at Yale and Princeton. And over the years, of course, lots of kids have attended all those schools, and they're happy. So this is not about bashing those schools. It's more about showing that there's also another way to go that can cost you a lot less and can be less stressful. And most importantly, where your kid can have a tremendous experience and be set up well for their future. It's also about trying to take a big hammer and just, sledgehammer, not regular, not little puny hammer, sledgehammer, and try to just bash that canard that just because a school's more selective, it makes it a better school.
Right.
There's so many people that think harder to get in equals better, and it's just not true.
Right.
It's just not true. So there's multiple things that should be involved when you're trying to figure out the best fit and the best match for your student. There's the financial fit. All the things that were mentioned. There's your child's mental health. There are opportunities that they will get with professors, to do research. There's a lot of things. And, another thing also that I loved about this, honors colleges at flagship schools are just great, great, great opportunities, and they're great bargains for your money. They're not for everyone. And I would never say that they're completely the same as the small liberal arts experience. Like I know what Karis experienced at Davidson, and that's a very difficult thing to replicate. But they are incredible values, and I don't think we probably talk about them enough. You don't think this happened to me recently, Lisa? It's weird because all of a sudden I had 3 families back to back that said something to me. It was a session I did a few days ago, Boston family, another family literally yesterday, that I met with from actually right here in Georgia. And then the previous family is from New York. And they were saying to me, we don't really need a lot of prestige, but we do want name recognition. We do want people to have heard of the school. Well, if that's important to you, like your big flagship schools give you that, if that's important to you, them being on national TV, them being all over ESPN, you'll never have to worry about somebody saying, I've never heard of your school. And for other people, they couldn't care less about that. Like, not everybody's heard of Davidson, and Karis is completely comfortable with that. Like, she would ED to there all over again if she had to do it all over again. Joy, on the other hand, she was more of a big school student. UGA and North Carolina State, and now UNC working there. So I just think these flagship schools, and not even flagships, just large national universities with great honors colleges, they're such a good value play.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you want to say?
A few thoughts. In some ways, if you're really, let's say, interested in research, going to a larger R1 institution that has like lots of faculty and lots of opportunities could be an advantage than going to HYP, right?
Yes.
So that's just one thing to think about too. Like you're getting not just the same level of quality of education, but perhaps more in that sense. I guess the other thing I wanted to say is I know you and I had talked about the new book that's coming out, The Disengaged Teen.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll get to interview the authors on the podcast. But I've got the book and I was reading it, and their main point is kids are disengaged because they're just trying to hit the metrics, check the boxes, and they're not learning really in a way that is, they're not following their passions. They're not like just following their curiosity. And as I read it, I'm like, yeah, the average high achieving kid would be like, I can't do this. Like I would lose out. But maybe if you changed your perspective about what is a good college, you wouldn't. And you'd have like a better basis of education. You'd have like a better, I don't know, approach to problems going forward for the rest of your life. So that's one thing. The other thing is the big fish in a small pond phenomenon, which is a lot of times there have been studies that show that kids who are sort of at the top of their school have more self-confidence and do better than a kid who's like kind of fighting it out to be average at a highly rejected institution. And they actually have better outcomes because, if you're constantly, feeling like you're not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, and you're just kind of scraping by versus you're excelling and winning all these awards or getting all these different opportunities, that's going to go with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't come off like I'm bashing, but I just could not help but think. But there's a family that I'm currently working with, and I will mention the name here, not the name of the family, but the mom graduated number one in her class and went to Harvard, and really felt beat up there, like just because of it was just hard being in the middle of the pack. And she ended up getting into med school, but she felt she would have had other med school options had she not gone to a place where it was hard. It was hard. And she said, I did it the wrong way. I should have gone somewhere else and then gone to Harvard Med versus, you
Right.
know, and once again, that's just one person's story. So again, I could give you plenty of people who've gone to that same institution, had great experiences. Something else you said that I thought of, sometimes you'll get better opportunities. Like one of the things that these larger schools provide sometimes is so many specific professors in your area. Now we know the University of Arizona's got strong science, but like the courses that were mentioned in that email, a lot of places may not even have the major, or they might have one professor.
Right. Right.
I was having a conversation, Lisa, with a student that I'm working with, and she's really down to her last few decisions, in terms of where she wants to go. And she'll hear this because she listens to our podcast, but the mom will, at least. The daughter does sometimes. So she's interested in studying Russian. So one of the schools that she's seriously considering is IU. Now, Indiana's got fantastic foreign language department. Like, I saw them say they have 83 languages more than anybody else. So that's like they're one of the top schools for.
Wait, 83. They don't just have 83 languages. They have 83 more than their next thing. Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm gonna say is so the daughter's interested in studying Russian, and I was having a meeting with the mom and the daughter, and by the way, I don't just put this stuff out there. I'll talk to her before I air this, but I'm confident she'll be okay with me sharing this. So they said, do you know they have 30 professors for Russian at Indiana? 30. Some of the other schools they're looking at, there's one.
Right.
And there's 30. And that's one of the things that you can get at some of these schools. You take the combination of a well-resourced flagship school, and then they all decided to have their different specialties. I just hanging their hat on things like music and their business school and communication school and languages. Not to say they're not good in other things, but then you go to a different place that is incredible in another field. And once again, we're all about fit and match. And I like to use my own family because I have one daughter who was great for the smaller Ballard school. I had one daughter who that was too small for. And I remember specifically, being with Karis visiting Georgia, and Karis is like, this place is too big. And I remember being with Georgia at Davidson. He's like, this place is too small. So it's really about just like we have different taste buds, it's about figuring out what your kids' taste buds are and then finding out colleges that match with that. But, I felt like this email was important because, there was one line in here. Well, there are a lot of lines that jumped out at me, but there was one line in here. It was something to the, oh, okay. I am annoyed as an Ivy alum that I fell into the trap a bit.
Yes.
And it's just so easy for people to fall into that trap. And how would you describe the trap, Lisa?
Well, it's it's a fallacy, right? It's this
Hmm.
idea that these schools are way better because they're way more selective. And if you don't go to one, then you're going to be a failure living in your parents' basement or homeless on the street, right? And so it puts all this importance in getting into these, Ivies, like as if they're the only schools in the country. And if you don't, then bad things are going to happen to you. And I think with this student, we saw really good things happen to her, that she didn't get into the school that she originally thought she wanted to go. So that's the trap. And the trap is about marketing, and it's about falling into, there's just like, and I think in certain circles, like I would say, like my kid's private school, like the pressure that you walk into a room and parents just expect that all those kids are going to HYP or similar, and it's hard to kind of resist that a little bit and say, oh, we're just going to go do something different over here. Don't mind us. And it's just, society keeps pushing you a certain way. So it takes discipline, I feel like, to not fall into that trap.
No, it does, because whether we want to admit it or not, as much as we might claim we're totally our own people, we don't care what anybody else thinks. Most of us kind of do care a little bit what some people think, as much some more than others, but especially people who are in your, sort of inner circle. And for some people, that's a parent. I've been surprised for how many times it's been a grandparent, and the parent is so concerned that their mother or father is not going to be happy with this. And so they're still kind of trying to please their grandparent, and they're 50-year-old
Right.
50-year-old mom and dad. I'm serious.
Yeah. No,
And
I
I know
could
that
totally
because
see
they
that.
tell me, they say it to me. Oh, grandma's not going to like it at all if my kid, So like sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's like just people in your friendship network and your social circles, whatever that is. And that's true on the parent side, or it's true on the student side, because peers like to be respected. So if they feel like, I don't know if my peers are going to respect me, and let's face it, people say mean things. Like I have kids that report, you know, hearing comments like, thought you could do better, you do better than that, like right to people's face.
Yeah.
And so
No. Ugh.
so those kinds of things happen, right? So I get the pressure, but what's so encouraging here is you get emancipated from that, and then look at all the good things that happen. And I feel so strongly about this, Lisa, and I know you do as well, because of like it's chipping away at our kids' confidence and mental health
Absolutely.
for no reason. Friends, this concludes the first part of my conversation with Lisa about this profound and insightful email that I received from a Western family. We hope you'll join us next week for the final part.
And now it's time for a question from one of our listeners.
Friends, the conversation I had with Hillary went so long, I wanted to split up over 2 episodes. The first part was last week, and I do want to play a couple of minutes from last week in order for listeners who didn't hear last week's episode to follow the conversation. All right, let's dive in with part 2 of Hillary and me talking about how important it is for a school to be able to accurately predict the number of students who are going to say yes to their offer.
And so where the waitlist used to give some flexibility and a little bit more, make you feel like you had more margin for error, these days it feels like the waitlist, at least for us, and I'm sure other schools that are similar to CC, is not as reliable. I'm sure that at the most selective schools, they can still take whoever they want off the waitlist.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
think at most that's probably
even
not.
at the most selective schools, their overall yield has dropped.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is a function of people applying to more colleges.
Right.
So there's just more competition now than there was before.
Yeah.
Or it was you and one other one. Now it's you and 4 other ones.
Yeah.
And so you're obviously not going to win that as many times as you did before. That's why, some of the high schools that I'll work with sometimes, especially I'm talking about more private school in some very competitive areas like DC and New York,
Mm-hmm.
they will limit the number of applications that
Mhm.
allow a student to have. And a lot of times the parents don't like that at all. I remember when I worked with Susan, we used to talk about this, and I can hear Susan just like it was yesterday. It was like, I was like, how can they do that? Because wouldn't that, like, I don't know if that would stand up to a legal challenge,
Yeah.
right? So we never did that, but a lot of schools do.
Mhm.
And, they'll explain it as, look, we don't want one kid getting in like 5 or 6 Ivies, and not like there's a quota, but at the same time, there's that balance between there's not a quota per school, but at the same time, uh, you want to please multiple feeders and
Yeah.
keep lots of feeders happy. So there's always that balance there, right? And I know for me, when I was on the recruitment side, I actually liked that because,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be recruiting from a place if people are applying to 18 or 20 schools. I'd rather go to a place where they're applying to 6 to 10,
Absolutely.
just in terms
Mhm.
of like the better chance that I'll see fruit from my labor,
Mhm.
and so I've tried to help families to understand that I know this might be really frustrating. And a lot of those times schools might have exceptions if it's someone maybe that needs a lot of aid, or sometimes they'll
Mhm.
have exceptions and things. But
Yeah. Well, and
um
I think Julia, I don't remember if it's
mm,
Julia or
mm,
Susan, one of them has
mhm,
talked about on the podcast two things. Like one,
mhm,
there's no way you can get to know every college on your list if you've got 20 or 25 schools.
mhm.
That's too many. You don't actually know them well. And then the other part, I think this was Susan, I don't remember which one it
One
was
of
who
them,
said
right?
this. Yeah, one of them said, like, the math does not work. You adding more schools doesn't mean that you have a
That's
better
Julia.
shot at getting
Julia's always
in.
saying that.
Yeah, like
Julia's
that is
always
not
saying
how
that.
math works.
Yeah.
It's still a 4% admit rate at each of those schools, and adding more does not double it or triple it, which I think is really smart and really hard. Like that's a thing that you have to say over and over again for people to not even understand, but maybe like believe you. It is still hard to understand because it doesn't feel like that's how life works, but it
Yeah,
is.
and I brought it up in more in the context that it may be frustrating if you're at a school and you're hearing that, but
Yeah.
that's also a way in which they're building relationships out there. And I'm not trying to say someone's just going to visit your school because of that and they wouldn't otherwise, but trust me, every admission officer would appreciate knowing that, this is not a school where kids are applying to
Hmm.
18 to 20 schools or whatever. Like, right?
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's just like, it's just common sense. You're trying to,
Yep.
you're trying to recruit to get results.
Yep.
And so,
And we can see that really easily when we pull up a school in Slate. You can see all of the students who've applied from that school over the last like 5 years is how we have ours set up. And you can see how many you admitted and how many actually showed up. And it is clear when like some of the boarding schools that I work with in the Northeast, I know that they're sending students who are interested in us and who they've been really thoughtful about creating their list. And if the student is applying to us, then it's because they're actually considering coming here. And I can see that from looking at our yield in the school's record in Slate, that we do really well at those schools because their counselors only allow them to apply to places that they're actually interested in. They're not just throwing darts at a board.
does it impact you in any way when you look at those numbers and you're like, wow, we've got like one, two of our last 19 admits at this place?
Yeah, I think we are the kind of school who is still going to give students a shot and admit students if they're qualified and they have done a good job on their application and made it seem like they're interested. We would never use how their school yields in order to deny a student or waitlist a student. But it does make me a little bit sad when I'm reading an application if I think it's a student who is not interested in us. Um, because I fall in love with the students who I read and I
Sure.
want them to come and I advocate for them. And so it's not that it is going to affect their outcome so much, but it's just can be sort of a bummer.
When I was on the school counseling side, both as director of college counseling and when I did director of boarding school admissions, I was very conscious of this.
Mm-hmm.
I tried as much as I could to If I knew that we had had multiple years in a row of schools coming in and presenting and doing
Mm-hmm.
all these things and offering with great packages and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they weren't yielding. I did not want them to dry up as a feeder
Right.
and for them to think, you know what, I'm not getting a good return on my investment,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go to other places. And so it impacted me on my end because when I was making recommendations or whatever, I would obviously people can apply where they want, but you have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of influence when you're in that role. And I
Mm-hmm.
would try to sort of counsel out people that I could tell were not serious about a place because I didn't want to go five
Yeah.
straight years in a row of not yielding because
Yeah.
I know how like potential that can have for me to be deprioritized,
Yeah.
you know?
The way that
So
I would
there was,
say it affects me the
yeah.
most
Hmm.
is how I'm planning my travel for the following
Sure.
fall. Like I can think of there's one boys' school that I visited a few times before I sort of gave up because
Hmm.
we would get applicants from them and their counselor told me like I'm so sorry, our students just don't usually end up choosing a liberal arts college. They are much more interested in going to some place where they can do just business or just engineering, and they don't really want to leave the East Coast. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep trying, right? And so I did. I kept going and visiting. And then at some point when I could actually see for myself, yeah, we're letting in these students and none of them are choosing to come here. They're staying close to home or they're going to like USC, which we have a weird overlap with for some reason. It made me say, I'm not going to spend my time visiting that school
Hmm.
anymore. I will still read their applicants and get
Sure.
excited about their applicants, but when I have to choose how I spend my travel time, like I've taken them off my travel schedule.
Right. So, and it's part of your job to
Mm-hmm.
assess time is precious, it's finite.
Yeah.
Resources are precious,
Yeah.
and you're trying to assess where am I getting a good return on your investment.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the charter school side, director of college counseling in Atlanta, we had a partnership with Richmond when Gil Villanueva's there. And it's the only time I ever had something like this. And it's partly because they have a lot of money, and
Mm-hmm.
it's partly because we were sending them the right kids. But he would say to me, "Tell me how many people you want me to fly in, and I'll fly them." I didn't even need to give him a transcript.
Mm-hmm.
I could just pick people. And so I'm making those decisions. And I had a lot of arrows in my back internally within the school because why is this kid not getting to go? But I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm not going to do this and not because somebody looks good on paper, but I know there's no way they're going to Richmond. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yep.
I managed that process.
Yep.
Um,
And
because
that is why it's so important for admission offices to build strong relationships with counselors,
Mhm,
because we develop that mutual trust and
yes.
understanding and know that we can count on you to send the right kids to us, whether it's for a fly-in or whether it's sending the right applications. We have to be honest with each other when we're talking about students so that we don't end up with the wrong kiddo at the wrong school.
Yeah, this is so important. Like if you're a counselor, you're listening and you're on the school side, like if you can either one, help schools manage yield, but
Mm-hmm.
also really help them know, like, this is a kid that both sides, right? Like this is the kid that's worth taking a chance on, even that
Mm-hmm.
maybe their
Yeah.
numbers aren't great.
Yep.
Versus, I mean, even me on my side right now, I have to do this. So I'm not going to mention names, but there's a school out there that anytime I send somebody, they want to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told them about this recently, and the person that wants to meet them is a pretty high up person. And normally I'm thinking, just handshake, chit chat, this, that, the other. I didn't know he was gonna like set up this big thing. And this is someone I don't know if they're gonna admit. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel the need to say, like, just this this is not as strong of an applicant as I've sent you before. So just, you know, you'll make your
Mm-hmm.
own evaluation, but
Mm-hmm.
this you may not want to spend an hour here kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it builds credibility. You
Yeah,
can't do that.
absolutely.
You can't do as much of that on the side that I'm at now because
Right.
not everybody's as open to it when you're an independent, right? Like they
Yeah.
don't people they just want to be careful. They don't want to be accused of
Mm-hmm.
giving preference to families with resources, and
Mm-hmm.
it's way more complicated doing it on this side than it
I
was
bet.
when I was school-based, but you still can establish trust relationships. And
Hmm.
everybody, like, I think the field is opening up a lot more to, one time a lot of people just had one felt swoop of the brush attitude toward independence.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing a lot more like, you know what? There's some good school counselors and there's some bad ones I don't
Yeah.
trust. And the same is true
Yeah.
there. And we'll individually make those assessments, but you can't burn that trust. Like that trust is
Yeah.
sacred.
Absolutely.
On
And
all
I think
kinds
it's
of levels. Yeah.
especially interesting now that CC,
Mhm.
like so many other colleges, we don't take, I'm using air quotes, we don't take
Mhm.
counselor calls, meaning like
Mhm. Sure.
counselors from independent schools used to call and advocate for their students
Yeah.
to help us. So, help us know who we should admit and who we shouldn't admit. And we don't engage in those kinds of phone calls anymore. We still will send emails to let counselors know kind of where their students are going to end up. But I think that with counselors who are really good at their job and have been doing this work for a long time, we trust that they are sending us the right kids. And we know that those students have someone who's a great advocate who is working with them and making sure that they're going to end up in the right place. And so I kind of feel like I don't, even if even if we deny a student from an independent school where, usually the counselor sends us just a really great group of students, we're always going to deny a couple of those students because we know that we are their reach school, and that they're just not going to make it in the pool. But we know that student's not going to end up like without a choice of a place to go to college because they've got a great counselor who built them a great list. And so we don't really have to worry about it. And it's very rare to hear pushback from counselors on our decisions once decisions have gone out. Occasionally you'll hear like, hey, can we just tell me, why? And then we'll tell them and they'll be like, okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to know to make sure that I've sort of, my radar is working correctly or whatever. But I think having those relationships where we know that the students are taken care of also really helps us feel free to do what we see best, for ourselves also.
Hello, this was fun. I don't even remember where we started, but we just
Yeah.
went on talking
optional parts of the Common App all the way to counselor
yes.
and
Counselor
admission
co-op
office
and
relationships,
yield
right?
strategies. Yeah.
Covered a lot.
Yeah. But thank you so much for sending in this question. And you do get a free book. You have 4 options. You can pick Essays That Kicked Apps. Looks at 55 well-written essays, and it has the essays in there and some commentary. So yeah, you can also get the best 390 colleges. You can get the new book on the digital SAT, and you can get their overall book on college admissions. Just email me at mark@schoolmatch4u.com. In the subject heading, put Princeton Review book giveaway. If you remember the episode number, you can put that in. The most important thing is your full name, full address, and the book that you want in the body of the email, and we'll get that out to you right away. So thank you, caller and Mom, and thank you, Hillary, as always. That was fun. It's fun talking to you.
So
Fun
much
going off
fun.
topic sometimes. So it was great. Awesome.
Yeah.
See,
Thanks, Mark.
Matt, Karen, and the gang for me, okay?
Of course, I will.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, we've reached our final segment of everything you want to know about 529 plans with Julia Shields-Rutyna and Jonathan Hughes of MEFA. In part 4, Julia talks about the research that Dr. William Elliot from the University of Michigan has done on the psychological benefits of 529 plans for students and for parents, even if the contribution is relatively small. Jonathan discusses whether a 529 plan can be used for job training. Julie talks about the 529A, also known as the 529 ABLE, and how it's different from traditional 529 plans. Julie mentions a range of qualified expenses that very few people know about that a 529A can be used for. I asked Julie whether this is very subjective or are the disabilities really clearly defined, and she answers that question for us. Jonathan talks about whether you can transfer money from a 529 plan to a 529A plan. Jonathan talks about whether a student can use their 529 for international universities, and he even lets you know where you can go specifically to find out about a specific school. Jonathan talks about the growth of child savings accounts in different states. He tells us what a child savings account is, and even talks about some specific states like Oklahoma, Massachusetts, and Maine, and what they're doing with their CSAs. And finally, Jonathan and Julie talk about how you can reach them if you have additional questions. And because they've already been here once before, they're exempt from going on the hot seat. Listen and enjoy. What do you recommend to the person that can't save a lot? They're like, what's my $50 going to do? I mean, look how expensive college is. What's $50? May as well not even do it. It's $50. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to college.
I'll give this one to you, Julie. I feel like I kind of said my piece on this one already. So if you want to have a go at it.
Yeah, I would just say that, believe it or not, and we have the benefit of the hindsight of working with all these families. Even saving a little bit is can be very helpful. Maybe that family, if they can't afford to save a lot, maybe that is a family that the child will get a lot of financial aid, and they'll have that option. But maybe they want to do an unpaid internship one semester, or they want to do a study abroad, or they want to just be able to buy all their books and not be stressed about it. I mean, those small amounts can still really add up. So that's number one, that I'd say there's, nothing too small, really. And then there are kind of two things that happen that aren't really financial. There's research. William Elliot out of the University of Michigan has so much research that you can read about, all about sort of the intangible benefits, where if a kid knows that his parent has a college savings account, it doesn't matter if there's $10,000 or $100 in it. The kid just knows my parent has a college savings account. Then that's kind of aspirational. And again, that William Elliot has all kinds of research showing that kids who know that end up going to college in a greater percent, and they end up graduating from college, and just kind of sets that stage for a culture of education. And I guess on the parent side, this is purely anecdotal from my work with parents, that everyone wants to help their kids, and everyone feels like they're never doing enough. And that's across incomes. Everyone feels like I should have done this better. I should have done more. But if a family is saving, there is some confidence built there and some good feeling about that they did what they could. So there's that kind of nice benefit of it, again, no matter how much the money is.
I will say too, I mean, now I will sort of add on that.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. It feels like a line. It's actually true. Nobody, I've been a MEFA for over 20 years. We administered 2 savings plans. I have not heard anybody regret saving, right? Everybody's glad that they've saved. They may have wished they could save more, but they're glad that they have saved what they have. I'll say that, number one. Number two, you mentioned that college is so expensive, et cetera. And there is that idea, and I'm not saying it isn't or it can't be, but don't be put off by figures that you hear on the news. That's usually the highest sticker price college in the area. It doesn't take into account financial aid. In all likelihood, that's not the cost you will be confronted with when you go to school. Most families qualify for some level of financial aid, so that hopefully will take out a good chunk of it. You'll have a balance remaining, and it's just good to have savings even if it's not paying the rest of that balance. Because after savings and after paying out of pocket, the only thing left is borrowing, right? So you don't want to borrow more than you can comfortably pay back. And so that's what I'll say.
I heard a really interesting presentation about a week and a half ago. You hear all of this talk about the exorbitant cost for college, but the presenter was actually showing that the tuition discount rate has gone up so much that it's basically countered the cost of college. And if you look at the percentage of people's money that they're paying now for college versus a decade ago, it actually hasn't increased because, colleges in turn have had to increase the amount of money that they give to students to incentivize them. Otherwise, there's another suitor over there that's willing to do that. And so it really got me thinking.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Plus the point you made, we oftentimes think of college 4-year residential, verdant, the quad, and that's not only the most expensive model, but it's the minority model. The majority model is not to do that, right? Either community colleges over a quarter of the population right there. Then you have, staying at home, or maybe you stay home for a couple years and there's lots of ways to do college. And so I really thought it was a good point you brought out, Jonathan, that, you don't always have to be in this mode of 4-year residential, private, small classes, crazy exorbitant sticker price.
Yeah, I mentioned the other day in a meeting to Julie that I heard something on the radio. I wasn't even really paying attention to it. I just got into the car and it was like it was for a training program, a job training program. And they mentioned at the end, made me listen, that you can use your 529 plan for it. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay, that's the first time I've heard that. So it makes sense with everything we're sort of seeing is that outlook is getting broader and broader.
Julie, let's talk about 529As as an
Yes.
ABLE, right? That's like a different variation of 529s. Talk to us about that.
It is,
History
yes.
and how they can be used.
Yep. So the ABLE programs are just terrific. There was an ABLE Act. It's Achieving a Better Life Experience, ABLE. And they amended the federal tax code in 2014 to add section 529A. So that's why these accounts, they're different than 529s, but they really operate very much like them. And that's why they're part of the same act. So in other words, well, I'll explain how they're like them. But basically, ABLE accounts are tax-exempt investment accounts for eligible individuals with disabilities. And these individuals can use them to pay for qualified disability expenses with those tax benefits, similar tax benefits to the 529. And then the second piece, which is critical, is these accounts let them keep their benefits, such as public benefits like Social Security and Medicare. So, which is huge, because in the past, before these accounts, an individual with a disability who received public benefits had a savings cap of $2,000. And over that, they risked losing those life important benefits. And so now ABLE programs allow someone to save up to $100,000 without affecting their Social Security benefits and never affecting their health benefits. So really great, a savings program that has these tax benefits and doesn't allow them to lose other benefits. But the differences are, that people with a disability are not limited to educational expenses. Now, they can use these accounts for educational expenses, but they can also just use them for, let me just give you a list of some of the other types of benefits, like personal support services, basic living expenses, housing, assistive technology, employment training and support, transportation, funeral, burial. So, those are all qualified expenses for the ABLE account that a person can use those for. So it's really a terrific program. And since it's relatively new, we've had our Attainable program in Massachusetts since 2017. So we are just continually trying to get the word out about these great programs and the uses of them and how helpful they are for people.
I could see someone out there thinking, which disabilities? I mean, I have ADHD. Does that count as a disability? Are they clearly defined, or is that very subjective in terms of which disabilities they're referring to?
No, they are clearly defined. So sometimes someone will have, it's part of receiving SSI that their disability is right there. But if not, they can just, say, this is my disability, have a doctor talk about the fact that, yes, this is your disability. Currently, they have to have had the disability from the age of 26. So that has limited some people. But going forward in 2026, that is going to be increased to 46. So someone who becomes disabled at 30 or something would still be able to qualify.
And that's been approved already, or is that sort of just what's percolating around?
No, that is approved. That's going to happen in 26.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jonathan, talk about transferring between different 529s and ABLE accounts. Is that a possibility? How does that work?
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. As of right now, that is a possibility, and that's something that we like to say that you can open a 529 account if it happens that your child has a disability or develops a disability and you are not able to use the funds for college. You can transfer those funds over to a 529A or ABLE account. That provision, though, is due to expire at the end of the year. Unfortunately, there is, though, as Julie reminded me earlier, legislation, as you say, Mark, percolating. It's not approved, but it's out there to continue that and to expand the window there to allow people to do that longer. I'm not sure if it's permanent or if it's just increasing the amount of time that's possible for. But that is something that is a possibility currently.
Let's take a break to learn about Mark's recommended resource for the week.
Hello, my name is Adam Aquat, and I'm going to share with you some information that is truly some of the best information I've found in my almost 40 years in education. It is about how students can earn college credits for free through CLEP exams. CLEP is an acronym for College Level Examination Program, and they are under the College Board umbrella just like AP exams and SATs. CLEP exams have been around for over 50 years, but unfortunately, not many people know much, if anything, about them. First off, there are 34 different CLEP exams in 5 curricular areas, and they're all computer-based. Over 2,900 colleges and universities in the United States accept CLEP exams for credit. Even community colleges also accept CLEP exams. To find out which colleges and universities accept CLEP, just simply input the name of the institution and then CLEP, and it should take you to the institution's catalog under Credit by Examination or Transfer Credits. The credits earned go toward overall credits and are not included in the student's GPA, just like AP exams. The exams are typically 90 minutes, and students receive the results immediately instead of having to wait 6 to 8 weeks like they do with AP and IB exams. Students can typically earn 3 semester units per successful exam, while successful world language exams can earn students up to 12 semester units for 1 exam. Another key piece for world languages exam in either French, German, or Spanish is that there is no verbal portion, unlike with AP exams, which many times is a large deterrent for students. Typically, colleges and universities award course credit, while some award general ed credit for successful exams. Scores can either be held in students' College Board account or sent directly to the institution. Now, here's even better news. Thanks to people named Steve Klinsky and David Weiss, students can take free courses designed to help students pass CLEP exams and also earn vouchers to take the exams for free. They feel that everyone should have equal access to a college education, and they did something about it. They created a philanthropic group, Modern Stage, which provides free asynchronous online courses taught by professors from prestigious institutions such as Johns Hopkins, Columbia, Boston College, and others. You can access Modern State's homepage at www.modernstates.org. That's www.modernstates.org. They offer 32 free courses which are available 24/7, 365, and are typically 20 to 25 hours per course. The online courses include instructional videos, aligned reading, embedded quizzes, and a final exam. Students are given a free voucher for the College Board exam fee after completing the online courses and earning a 75% score on the final exam. If they don't earn a score of 75%, they are shown where they need to go back and review, as Modern States wants to program them for success. Typically, students need to earn a score of 50 out of 80 to earn credit, which is only 63%. Avid teachers could integrate various parts of the courses into their classes, or the students could complete the courses separately from the current curriculum. Modern States provides reimbursement for exam sitting fees if and when they are encountered. Virtual testing is also available, and the extra fee for that is also covered by the voucher. Wait, there's more good news. CLEP exams can be taken year-round, not just the one chance for each exam at the beginning of May, like AP or IB. This means that summer school programs are also viable. School counselors can recommend CLEP exams based on what high school courses a student has already completed. Modern States material can also be integrated into regular curriculum, and students can take both their regular final and CLEP exam, thus earn high school and college credit. CLEP exams can help reduce financial and emotional stress by making the journey to and through college more affordable, and also can reduce the amount of time spent in college. CLEP can also allow students to take fewer classes in college and stay on track for graduation, allowing for concurrent job or family assistance, etc. A school district can become a CLEP testing center for free, and I can help with that. We became a testing center at my previous school and had a 100% pass rate for students who completed the prep. You can contact me at aoedconsult@yahoo.com. That's aoedconsult@yahoo.com. Would love to help you, and you know what? It's all free. Look forward to helping you in the future. Take care.
What would you say to the person that says, "Oh, this sounds really good, but I can see my student going overseas and I've put all this money into a 529, and then they decide to not even go to the college in the United States"? What would you say to them?
Well, if that happens, one of the, as Julie has mentioned, one of the great things about 529s, they're very flexible, right? And so just like you don't have to use a 529 plan in your state to go to a college in your state, you can use it from any college in accredited school in the country. Also for international colleges as well, as long as they are set up to take U.S. federal funds, you can use your 529 funds there and still retain your tax benefits. And there is a listing on FSA.gov of all of the international colleges that have federal school codes. So sometimes we do get calls from people saying, what about this school? What about that school? Or what country in, what college in Spain or in the Philippines or wherever can I go and still use this 529 money? And they can go on to that site and look up and see if the college does accept U.S. federal funds, and they can still use their 529 money that way.
You must look at 529s, especially if you're in a state with a tax deduction, and almost think of it almost like you think of people that have a match for their 401k, and you're like, you have to get that match anyway. Does it feel that way? Because if you know you're going to have this expense, and you get a tax deduction, and then of course it can grow tax free and be withdrawn tax free, don't you sort of feel like, do something? If all you can do is start out with 25 and build it up, but like get in the habit of doing something probably right from birth.
Absolutely. And I think, Julie, we should probably talk about CSA programs then, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that, because the benefits keep sort of being established and being expanded, and, we have these retirement accounts, and we have all the, the possibilities here. A growing number of cities and states, municipalities, or what have you, have started these programs called CSA programs, or Child Savings Account programs. And so I think the first one is in Oklahoma, but, and Julie mentioned earlier, Billy Elliot there, or is it Billy or William Elliot? Billy Elliot's the movie.
I'm much more
But and so he has done a lot of the research that he has done on 529s is because of these CSA programs that have popped up. And essentially what they are is that they're seeded sometimes where, okay, we are going to put in a certain amount of money for you in a 529 account for your child because you were born here in Massachusetts or born in California, or you're a kindergartner in Boston. So we partner with the Massachusetts state treasurer's office to offer Baby Steps, which is the first statewide seeded CSA account in Massachusetts. Every child born or adopted in Massachusetts gets $50. There are similar programs in Maine, the Alphon Grant in Maine, in the city of Boston, for example, where kindergartners can sign up and get an account and get a match, etc. So yes, to answer your question, I mean, I think that these accounts are really looked at more and more as a good, as a sort of a social good. And because of that, there are so many programs that have popped up that are sort of telling people this is a good thing to do for your child, and we're going to help you get started here. Do you want to add anything, Julie?
No, just that I have that confidence when I talk to anyone. I have that underlying feeling, I guess because we do this for work, but of course, you have a child. Of course, you don't have a crystal ball to know what their future is, but this is flexible enough. This is a good thing. This is something you should do. And yes, do it, but also don't beat yourself up about the specifics. How much? Well, which state? Well, just sign up, and it will end up being a good thing.
Which is why I said it's my favorite thing to talk about. Everything is good, right? Whatever you do, it's good. Good.
I follow investing, and there's this guy out of Silicon Valley named Brad Gerstner, and he has, he's a hedge fund manager and founder of Altimeter Capital, but he's been really pushing for like the federal government, states, investors, companies to like give people $1,000 at birth, and he said this would cost less than so many other big expenses we have. And he's challenged corporations, if you have a kid, to put that in their account as a benefit, just to sort of let people see the benefits of compounding as part of a financial lesson. And, his point is like people are losing out on the first, let's just say they don't start investing, if they do, till mid to late 20s, the first 25, 28 years, they're losing out on that. And he feels you could really transform people's thinking if they could see that. And a lot of people have been taking the pledge that he's been putting out there. So I'm not surprised to hear the growth of this because it's very similar in concept. So we've talked about everything I can think of. I'm 529 out in terms of questions. In closing, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you'd want to leave our listeners with?
I think we covered it. And especially with those conversations at the end about just go for it.
Just do it. Nike slogan, just do it.
Right. I didn't know if I could say Nike would come get me.
So this has been great. You're a second time guest, so you don't have to go on the hot seat. You passed that. You passed that test. Once again, if you could just share how people could find you, if anybody wanted to talk further to you about 529 plans, what would be the next step?
Yeah, you can go to MEFA.org. You can check out the MEFA podcast with Julie and I will be there. My email is jhughes@mefa.org. Happy to talk with you personally about anything. And I'll also say, I'll give it to you, Julie.
Yeah, and I would say you're welcome to have my email too, Shields-Rutyna, but probably the easier thing at MEFA.org is just college planning at MEFA.org is a great email that our whole team sees those emails, and you could always ask for John or Julie, and our phone number, which is 1-800-449-MEFA, is also a good place where you can reach us.
And that's just MEFA. And I do want to just put an endorsement in for your podcast. I think it's a great place for people to empower themselves with knowledge. Most of the time you're on finances. Occasionally you have some college-related non-financial, discussions. But it's just a really good tool to bolster and buttress your knowledge about money. And for those of you for whom the cost of college is a concern, I know that I listen to it. I check it out. I'm a subscriber. I download it. And so I can recommend it to you guys. But thanks so much for coming back on. I appreciate it. And thanks for the offer for me to come back on your podcast. I look forward to that as well.
We can't wait.
That was a total pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Friends, on Monday's episode, I feel it's a really important episode because to me, so much about admissions is going to change effective immediately, beginning with this class, the class of 2025. And I shared some of this with you on episode 514. But there's even a lot more to share, and I want to go into a lot more depth of all of the things that I'm expecting will be different immediately. Class of 2025 and definitely 2026 and 2027. So I think you're going to find that interesting. And then I'm going to talk about a brand new admission opportunity that's out there. We've all heard about early admissions. What about late admissions? So we're going to be talking about that. And then we'll have the final part of my interview with Kathleen Dulaski on Who Needs College. So friends, I want to close with a conversation that I had with a family from the Pacific Northwest this week. They were considering working with me, and so they just set up a consultation to learn a little bit more about how everything works. And they asked me a question. They said, the dad did actually, and he said, I want to know you're not going to try to make my kid somebody they're not if we work with you. And I love that question because what the dad was saying was, I want to know if you value authenticity, which is another way of saying, I want to know if you value integrity in the process. So, of course, I keep the book I wrote right by my computer. So when I get a question like this, I can pull it out and read one of my favorite quotes. And that's what I'm going to close with today, because every time I read this quote, I think inside my head, I can't say this quote enough. It's by Robin Mamlett, former director of admissions at Stanford, Swarthmore College, Sarah Lawrence, and Lawrenceville Boarding School. Even more than impressive test scores, or great transcripts, or fantastic essays, colleges are looking for authenticity. Not the appearance of authenticity. Not the packaging of authenticity. Not the strategy of authenticity. Just authenticity. Plain and simple. So why is that? If they detect exaggeration or pretense or packaging, how do they know which parts of the application are real? See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you'll get every single episode as soon as it is released. If you're interested, there are a few ways you can really support our podcast. You can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can help us pay our staff and our expenses by donating on our website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. I'm the producer of the podcast, but we have a fantastic team of 15. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff, Dr. David Williams, Linda Depker, Susan Tree, Vince Garcia, and Julia Esquivel. And to our substitute co-host, Sylvia Borgo. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs are from Kimberly Blass. Lily Parikh manages our Instagram. Our image editor is Talha Khan. Joy Stucker does our website episode updates. And our webmaster is Stylianos Dimitriou. And if you want to have a coaching session with Lisa, Linda, or me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you have a question you want us to answer, or if you have a recommended resource or article you think we should discuss, just send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Our favorite method is for you to record your own voice at speakpipe.com/YCBK. By the way, check out our website, where you'll find lots of content that is not on any podcast app. Our website is yourcollegeboundkid.com. If you want to learn about other hot admissions topics, follow us on Twitter at YCBK Podcasts. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting again with you every single Monday and Thursday.